So, once you get bankers and lawyers involved, the issues can become, very granular, and you can get lost in the weeds very easily. That's why I talk about, not losing perspective during the deal is actually something very difficult to do. There were issues on both sides, given the nature of our business, but this is very specific to our business. There were issues around around retention. I wanted to make sure that the place I went to was not we were a very disturbing little group in the sense that we compete with the big boys, and there was always, in fact, the bankers sent letters to competitors even, and so are we selling this to go and be killed, or are we selling this to really have a bigger platform of investment? Was at the heart of our conversation, and understanding how much retention would be put in place so that I knew this thing would go on. From their end, it's the flip side of that. Are you guys going to get the money, declare victory, and run? How do we make sure that we integrate the company? M&A. Let me take a minute on that, even though it's a bit tangential to your question. But it's in line with my answer, which is how do you properly integrate companies? M&A is a difficult game post deal. The deal is the easy part almost. Again, at this conference I was at 2 months ago speaking on the deal in Boston, I heard a guy called Muhammad Ali. What a name. He's actually a really small a Persian guy. He's funny. He's vice president of IBM, and at IBM, in one of the divisions of IBM, I can't remember the name of the actual division, and he deals solely with pre-deal and post-deal. Deal is outsourced to India, if you would. Meaning the deal part is actually dealt by other people in the company. His business is to set a business plan, a business case for potential acquisitions, push the deal over the fence to the deal guys at IBM. They push it back, with success or not, and then his responsibility is to actually see the integration through. And, it made me realize how serious this game is for a lot of big companies. That's how a lot of big companies grow nowadays, and they have teams fully dedicated to the success of integration. In retrospect, it's something that we should have spent more time on. Exactly how is it going to be done? Is there a team to do that or not? Because everybody wants to do the deal because it's a manly thing to do. Here we are, willing and dealing. But in reality, the hard work happens as soon as the ink is dry. And although a lot of the issues that came up had to do with it, it could have been a lot more in depth. So these issues can arise around structure of the integrated company. I should say, to your question, in fact, that the deal structure is in fact the first thing you clear, right? So that's the easy part. You don't start and talk, integration if we even haven't talked price. I'm not even talking price. I'm talking structure, right? So what amount of shares, what amount of lockup, et cetera, et cetera. So that's obviously is cleared up front. And if that becomes an issue, it is not an issue. You have no deal. Right? So anything that touches structure, the financial structure of the deal, it's an issue or it's not an issue, if you understand what I'm saying. Right? But so the issues, that were dealt with, that we dealt with were post-acquisition. What kind of structure do we have? How do we make sure that this innovation is not lost? A lot of, it depends again on the industry, but a lot of the companies that do acquisition do so with a financial model of essentially outsource R&D. If you think about R&D as a sort of a Monte Carlo, many options, it's very expensive to fund every option as a private company. So you let the venture capitalist community or the entrepreneurial community fund that, and you cherry pick. You take less risk, less return on investment, but you don't incur, the whole cost, and you don't have to manage all of this Monte Carlo tree, essentially. And so, one should realize that companies acquire you not to give you money, but to buy ongoing innovation around products. That's an accepted model today of the industry. Perfect example, the 3Coms of the world that have grown solely through acquisition of essentially outsourced innovation being outsourced to the venture capitalist community. And so, once you recognize that, it is normal that the people at the other end of the table spend a lot of time thinking about how to make your structure happy and proficient, and how to leverage that asset once it's incorporated in the bigger structure. There were usually those kinds of issues. I pass on all the legal discussions that and take forever, and we racked up a huge bill, and I think it's an organized racket, if you ask me. But it's a great question. So the question is due diligence, and what happens when your competitors are doing due diligence. It's a tough one, and you're not in control. Well, you are to a certain extent. You can say, no, I don't want to open my books. I don't want to show my processes. No matter what paper you sign with them promising NDA and all of that, at the end of the day, they're sucking the lifeblood out of you. And they know every deal you have. They know every customer for how much. Forget the R&D, because at least in our case, we were open source. We are open source. What that means is we develop software that we share with the whole world, and anybody can contribute. So our intellectual property in the code was completely open, right? But that doesn't mean you can monetize it. To monetize it, you needed the business around it. And not that we had intellectual property in our processes. Sales is sales is sales is sales, right? How are you going to patent that? But who our customers were, how we went about all the material, who our prospect, what our pipe was, who was interested, that's a lot of information. And yes, there was competitors at the table. And opening the kimono for your direct competitors is a scary thing. I gotta imagine, I'm speaking out of reason here, not experience. I've never been on the other side of the table. But I gotta imagine that some people engage in the M&A process with the sole purpose of taking that information from you. And it's legal. I mean, it's legit. Right? There's nothing you can do. So I think that's, you raise a great point. That's a reality of the game. I was not comfortable at all with that. And in fact, it was interesting because the press got wind of our deal, and it was worse than the Inquirer. It was flying all over. Tino, did you follow some of that last year, a year ago? It was funny. I was supposed, I would read through the press about the deal, and I was supposed to appear on Squawk Box one morning in California with Larry Ellison. I was in Atlanta, so there was nowhere. The press makes up stuff. The reason I'm saying that is then a competitor of ours went and said, "Oh, we looked at them," trying to not appear as being the little boy in the deal. And no, they hadn't, because I had, they were one of our very direct competitors, and I said, no way these guys come in with the level of interest they've expressed. And yet they were saying in the press that they'd looked at the books and all of that, and that they'd never had done due diligence on our company. That's a great question. There is no one answer. In my case, I said no way to one competitor. Another competitor, did get engaged a little bit more, and that's just how the game is played. It's your comfort level that counts here, I think.